So let's talk new age, new earth, what these things mean. I've explained before that one of the things I'm trying to do is bridge these gaps in vocabulary and language between the different worlds that I belong to. So I've spent all of my adult life in one side of the world, the world that you get into when you go to college and graduate and buy a house, get married, have a family, get a 9 to 5 corporate job, and learn how everything operates. I was in business, finance, all my career, so I learned a lot about how the world really works. They teach you one thing in college, and they say go get them, and you go out there and you really see how things operate. You learn a lot about what is not said about the way the world works. And part of my spiritual awakening, if you want to call it that, or my return to God, if you want to call it that, has been this better understanding and this integration of all of what I've learned about the world and how things actually work out there. I think we all sense it. There's these fundamental issues with, the people that are out there doing good, being rewarded for the good they do, or being punished, getting ahead or falling behind. Same thing on the other side are the people that are doing evil in extreme examples, but just cutting corners and, using things that you would consider to be sinful to get ahead, put others down, and then be rewarded for that. It's pretty obvious when you spend as much time in the corporate world as I have. The corporate world is full of good people and bad people. And some of the people in power are good people and some are bad people. But there's general trends, and there's, underlying factors you can see. If you do these particular things, what is the likely outcome as far as how you're progressing through the world? And the way things work, and I think nobody's going to be surprised about this, is there are tiers and there are levels to society, and the rules do not apply to everyone within those tiers, whether you're conservative or progressive, Republican, Democrat. Doesn't really matter where you are on this side of the spectrum or that side of the spectrum. Where you are up and down the tiers of society has a lot more impact on how the world is working out for you, and what you're receiving as far as financial blessings, security, stability. And so personally, what I was realizing probably 17 years ago was a pretty big milestone. That was 2008, 2009. I was watching from inside of the financial sector what was happening to the financial sector when everything started to melt down. And it was pretty obvious that that wasn't going to be allowed to happen. The people who had made mistakes and chose things like greed over right action, it was clear the system was going to bail them out of those mistakes. And that was a very real thing in my world. I got to see what that meant, who suffered, who did not suffer throughout that chaos, and who really bore the brunt of those mistakes. And it was a step in the process for me. But it wasn't anything that made me realize really just the fundamental problems here when it comes to right and wrong, and that some of these wrong actions uh, were getting smoothed out by a system that was going to continue to support this wrong action, wrong mentality. I also started to see this in other institutions over the next 15 years. It became obvious this wasn't just a financial institution problem. I sort of started to realize my institution that I was a part of was affected by this, and I had to change how I played the game and change some of my assumptions. And it personally, what it did to me was really, really darkened my heart and put me in a position where I wasn't quite to a anything goes mentality, but it was clear to me that bad behavior wasn't necessarily punished, and good behavior a lot of times was. So this, I'm gonna get mine, I'm gonna get ahead, I've got to play this game too. That kind of mentality starts to set in, and you started to see it in all the other institutions, not just in finance, but in education. You started to see this bad behavior being rewarded in other types of the corporate world. It was pretty obvious that it was easier to lie and make a lot of money and pay some penalties than it was to actually tell the truth and not make the money to begin with. That became so obvious as I was trying to stay in the finance world and assist people with their financial planning and retirement, safety, security. It became clear and obvious this wasn't just one institution or one sector of the economy that behaved this way. It was all sectors. So that created a real problem for me as I slipped farther and farther into this bad behavior, bad mindset, and I realized I was just a part of the problem. And it was at some point that there was this other part of my life that started to wake back up, this spiritual side. A lot of this came from a change in music and the influences and sort of the spiritual study I was doing about other ideas around light and dark, way beyond my Christian upbringing. I started to learn some of these universal principles that underlie all faiths, all religions, that sort of helped me understand what was happening in a more spiritual way. That this was more of a spiritual warfare condition than it was just, I don't know, market forces or something simple like that. It felt deeper, and it felt a little bit more vicious, more aggressive than just market forces. People find a loophole here and there. Of course, they're going to use that loophole to get ahead. It started to become clear it was more than that. And so through this spiritual awakening and this understanding of many other spiritual ideas and many other faiths, this idea continued to come up, which was this idea of a new age and a new earth and a new way of being, and how we as humanity are meant to make spiritual progress, and that we've reached a place that is much more progressive spiritually than we used to be in even 100 years ago, 200 years ago, but especially if you start looking back 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 3,000 years, humanity's spiritual progression is pretty obvious. And as I studied these things, it became clear that the people who really organized these ideas for thousands of years of human history see these things as very long-term cycles that are meant to that are meant to provide a foundation for that progress. And even though things take a lot of time, um, when you zoom out and you really look at periods of time beyond how you look at history when you were in school where you're memorizing dates, if you just zoom out and you look at overall culture and you look at shifting priorities and you look at how certain ways of living and ways of being are becoming more common and how other ways of being are sort of fading away, you can see these massive shifts that are happening within this grand cycle. I started to learn more about the age we were in. I didn't know really anything about astrology other than horoscopes in newspapers. I thought that's what astrology was. I didn't understand this grand procession of the earth. I didn't understand these subtle and not so subtle influences on our nature based on when we're born, based on sort of this sense of what is your fundamental purpose, and how is that very specific to you, and how is that different for everyone. But within this idea of everyone has a different personal mission, there are these categories and there are these common traits within certain people and within certain personality types. I started to learn a lot about the personality type side with things like Myers-Briggs and Enneagrams and all of that. And that was interesting when you could start to drill down and see overlap with these very old or ancient ideas that go back to the fundamentals of Hermeticism and thousands and thousands of years. Some of these basic ideas that chimed in, the Egyptian religion and the Sumerian religions. This new age, this cycle, this division of personal purpose and responsibilities and personalities, and the reason for this variety, and having all these different personality types involved as a part of the process of maturing as humanity. This all started to make a little bit of sense to me. But it was a big area of study, big chunk of information to try to digest. So I'm not going to try to digest and translate thousands of years of study on the influence of dates, time, stars, planets, all of that. But my belief in these things began to get more serious the more I saw their widespread adoption. And you could see these ideas not just in, Eastern, mysticism or something that was a faraway New Age kind of an idea. You could see them in these very old religions too. You just sort of need to know what to look for as you see symbolism within scripture and things like that. See symbolism of a fish, maybe that's not a coincidence. You see the symbolism of a ram, maybe that's not a coincidence. You see the ram being jealous of the symbolism of the bull, and you start to wonder, well, that's odd. But that just happens to be what this conflict is between the ram and the bull. And then you have this fish that comes in and starts to replace things. If you don't know what I mean by that, you can see this all throughout the Old and the New Testament. You can see it in writings of church fathers. You can see it in the writings of Jewish spiritual leaders in their time. You can see how that evolves in Judaism from very old, simple, basic law ideas to more in-depth spiritual, mystical ideas. Things like the Kabbalah, things, or you start to see these fundamental ideas of the things like the tree of life and the seed of life, and these ideas of the intersecting personalities and emanations of God being an all part of the creation at this fundamental level, a part of the makeup of all of us and the greater spiritual world. So yeah, I can't explain all of that in a video, but I can tell you the overlaps and the consistencies across cultures and across millennia of study are clearly and obviously there. And I don't know if that's something you could link directly to prophecy, but it seems to be more than just the prophecy of an individual who receives a message. This looks like a great universal explanation across cultures and ages that has been passed down, received, translated, processed, and pushed forward throughout this evolution of our species and the spiritual evolution we're a part of. So we are in one of these times where we are transitioning from one age to another. I think people get fixated on this idea and want to know dates, or we try to nail things down so tightly so that we can define them in a way that we can grab onto. And when you do that, it makes positions very hard to defend. Think about the Mayan calendar in 2012 and all of the people that were looking at that and talking about that, but not really understanding what it meant. And then when the world didn't end on the winter solstice of 2012, it was sort of confirmation for all those people that were not believers in things like ages and cycles. Like, oh yeah, see, it's another one of those situations where you can just ignore this. You don't have to learn anything. Clearly, this is all bogus and never comes true. That's what happens when you start trying to nail things down to dates rather than zooming out and really seeing what's happening. When you zoom out and you look at the age that we're in, the age of Pisces, and you put a starting point on that around the time of Jesus, which is around 2,000 years ago, then you can also see that there was an age before that also lasted around 2,000 years. And then there was an age before that as well. Again, around 2,000 years. This has all been proven with science now, and an understanding of the tilt of the Earth axis, and how, the constellations that rise on the eastern horizon, and when the sun rises on the spring equinox, that over time that gradually changes. And we've reached the end of this Piscean age. That doesn't mean it's ending tomorrow. It could be 100 years, 200 years, 300 years from now still, before that's fully transitioned from this Piscean age to the Aquarius age. But this transition to this new age is beyond just this silly dawning of the Age of Aquarius that people try to laugh off with a song from the 70s or 80s. The end of the Age of Pisces is the end of a great cycle. Pisces is the last in the procession. In the Piscean age is meant to be the age of dreamers. It is meant to be the age of great transition. And the age that comes after a Piscean age is what we would think of as a golden age, an enlightened age, an age where we are returned to a very close connection with God, at least relatively speaking. We're meant to ascend into a more spiritual place and a less material place. I don't believe that means we'll all become spirit and just float around and lose our bodies. I believe that means our focus and purpose shifts from a material focus to a spiritual focus. So I believe that is happening. I believe we can see it, and I believe if you're a Christian or just a Jesus believer like me that hasn't fully committed to everything else that Christians believe in, sort of left up the greater concept of God and spirit to something that the Christian church doesn't agree with, then in the context of this new age and this new earth, you can go back into scripture and you can see where Jesus is explaining this and how he's explaining this, that the coming of his age is not the end of war. It is a time of conflict. It is a time when brother turns against brother, and fathers against sons. When there's 5 in a house, 3 will be against the 2. There is this idea that it is not an easy time, the Piscean age. It is a very, very difficult time because it is really this conclusion, this capstone period in a great cycle where everything comes together and we work out as humanity. These great conflicts that we've been experiencing for ages, we have to reach a point during this age where we overcome those conflicts. And when we do that, we will reach what is a heaven on earth state. We will return through this great cycle. We will return back to an Edenic state where we are no longer separated from God, where God's presence lives alongside us and we live in a close connection to God in the way that we did in the time of the garden. This also helps explain the second coming. I've alluded to the book of Revelation before. I believe the book of Revelation was apocalyptic literature that was meant to explain things that were happening at the time it was written. And I believe the apocalypse in the book of Revelation is an event of the past, not an event of the future. I believe the event of the future is a fulfillment of the teachings of Jesus, and it's really hard to reconcile the book of Revelation and the teachings of Jesus and somehow come up with a coherent understanding of how good will conquer evil in the end. There was a lot of apocalyptic literature and a lot of prophecy at the time of Jesus, and many of the other explanations do make more sense when put in alignment with the teachings of Jesus. And those teachings really do explain things in a very similar way to the New Age ideas around the new Earth and the new age that we're entering into. So I started off talking a little bit about what I've learned in the world and what I saw in the world, and then sort of tried to explain that this transition to a new age is something that's a very, very common idea. But a new earth and a new age is so different than what we have today that it seems almost impossible that it would happen in anything other than a supernatural way. And I believe it will happen in a supernatural kind of way. But I believe this supernatural action or the supernatural event is still a personal responsibility of individuals. I believe when we truly apply the teachings of Jesus in the way they were originally intended, and we rediscover the full meaning of those teachings and the full extent of those teachings, then we will have at our hands a very practical game plan on how to establish this new earth. And it doesn't take 51% of the earth choosing to do that to somehow gain a majority of opinion. It actually takes a very, very small percentage of the earth's population behaving that way and acting in that way with those intentions. The right people coming together and behaving that way and putting us on a path that truly does match the teachings of Jesus. It's 1%, 2% of the Earth's population makes that decision, and that's all that's really required to get us over the hump, because of the power that would come from the decisions of those 1-2% people. So when I see the teachings of Jesus and I see on the other side of my world the beliefs, the New Age beliefs, the spirituality that you find growing in the world that has this fundamental connection to the teachings of Jesus, even if the people who believe that way don't read the Bible and don't read Scripture, they're living out this progression of the idea of Jesus. They're living out the end days of the Piscean age with this illuminated understanding of what it means to truly be able to create a heaven on earth. And I believe it's possible, and I believe it's happening. I don't have the wisdom or the insight. I don't have a prophetic vision that can tell you exactly how it's going to happen. But you can see it happening. You can see divides starting to close. You can see all of these different cultures, all of these different religions. You can see them just almost with a gravitational draw back toward each other, toward a common source and a common belief. And in that common belief, there is a message of unity, love, and peace, which was the teaching of the great spiritual master that kicked off the Piscean age, and whose teachings have slowly but surely changed humanity's perspective on how we should treat each other. We haven't reached a point where we've truly overcome our more base, sinful nature and reached to this new state of being in Christ, or as Christ intended. But the message of the Messiah was that message. It was this message of bringing it all back together, and through that bringing it together, the end of conflict, the end of scarcity, those with resources pulling up the lowest people in society and using their resources to lift the entire body of humanity, and that being the ultimate criteria on which you're judged as an individual, is this attention that you spend not just on your personal connection to God, but on improving relationships between people, relationships between you and your family, you and your friends, you and your enemies, how you take care of those people that you previously may not have even thought of as your responsibility. That transition to that mindset is happening. It's not been easy. It's not been perfect, but we are closing in on a place because of our spiritual development and because of our technological development that we are reaching a point where with a change in mindset, we have the opportunity for an abundance of resources that can truly lift all of us into a place where we are in a true new earth state. I'll be spending time by myself sketching this out and devising a plan, and thinking out all the little pieces of it. But I don't do that because I think it's going to be me that solves the problem of the world. I just do things like that so I can see, well, if this is what it takes to get to an area of abundance here, who's fighting on the side of the light and who's fighting on the side of the darkness. Whenever you see the end goal and this dawning of this new age and this coming of a new earth and an Edenic state on the planet, whenever you shift your mind and you start looking at behaviors of individuals and institutions, you can see right from wrong. You can see light from dark. It's visible and it's obvious. You just have to apply the right criteria and the right roadmap to figure out a way to navigate through the world and support those people that you think are delivering good work on the side of the light. And you have to get very personal and decide whether or not you are one of those people that, an outsider would look at and say, yep, that's a person that's working for the good guys. And it can be very difficult. For me, it has forced me to leave my career, leave the road that I was on and the life that I was building, and return to this wild state of unknown, and try to find a new path through it all. And that path to me is a search for a path back home. So I don't know what this will mean to anybody else, but for me, this is my understanding of the age, the dawning of the new age, the end of the great cycle and the beginning of the new, and the elevation to this new state that we will be in. It won't take just waiting around for some apocalyptic event to somehow clear the slate and make things all right. It's not what we're called to do at all. We have to take a little more personal responsibility for that. So that's what I'm going to try to do. Take more personal responsibility for that. It is with God's love and support that is possible. It is through the teachings of Jesus and my personal connection to the Spirit that gives me strength as I go through the struggle of that, the emotional struggle of that, dealing with all of the areas where I was getting things wrong and having to course correct and deal with all the fallout of that, all the forgiveness that's required with that, all the forgiving myself, forgiving others, and asking forgiveness and asking God's forgiveness for the things I've done, and getting comfortable enough with that to know that now God's got my back and can actually help me on the righteous path, even though it's a difficult one where you fail every day. It's just how we operate as humans. So I'll continue to try to do better, learn more, apply what I learn. But if you get scared by this word or phrase, new age. Don't be afraid. This coming age is a really good one. And all should be looking forward to it and putting in the work to make it happen. So I'll see what I can do.